Hey guys, in this video I'm taking you along for the ride detailing the interior of this Kia Soul. This is not a maintenance client, it's a totally new client, and we're talking everything detailing and of course business, but more specifically detailing business. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hey guys, in this video we are talking about specific detailing business strategies that will instantaneously bring in more money into your auto detailing business. And truth be told, it's going to fill your business with the right type of clientele. But just real quick before we get started, if you are starting in the auto detailing business or you're super experienced and advanced, below in the YouTube description box, I've got a free 13-page guide that lays out each and every tool and product that you need to start your detailing business for under $500. And it's worth checking out this list even if you've already started in your detailing business, just to make sure that you have all of the essentials. That way you're not wasting money on products and tools that don't work. So go below and grab that free guide in the YouTube description box below. Now, that being said, the context for this video, like I said, is the interior of a Kia Soul. This is a new client. This is not a vehicle that I've seen before, and I charged, full disclosure, $200 even in order to get this entire interior finished. Now, you got to see the before of the interior just a second ago, so you see that it wasn't crazy dirty. But basically what I'm going to be doing in this video is taking care of the door jambs, all interior rubber, vinyl, plastic, and hard leather surfaces, all carpets, as well as the upholstery, and I am going to be extracting the upholstery. But for the sake of this video, we are only walking through the first part of the interior detail up until we get to the carpets. Now, like I said in the beginning, we are talking about how to instantly bring more money into your business. And I want to talk about how to do this, and just prepare yourself. This is going to sound like a pretty counterintuitive video. It's going to sound a little paradoxical, and it might even sound like this is something that doesn't really make sense for you to do. But here's step number one in bringing more money into your business. Raise your prices. That sounds super obvious, super easy, and of course I know what you're thinking, Luke, if I could raise my prices, I would have already raised my prices. Of course I would do that if I wanted to make more money. But Luke, I'm not getting any customers as it is right now anyways. If I raise my prices, I'm only going to get less customers. There's an amazing book called Influence by a guy named Cialdini, and if you've never read it, you really should, because he talks about this example of a jeweler who owns this jewelry store, and she's trying to get rid of some of the inventory or jewelry in the glass cases that she just hasn't been able to sell. And so she puts a little note before she leaves for the day and lets everybody else run the store for her. She puts a little note that says half off all of this particular jewelry that she's trying to get rid of. Well, guess what? The next day when she comes in, all of the jewelry has been sold. And she asks, what the heck happened? I guess the half off coupon really made people want to buy it. And what she didn't realize is that the people who bought the jewelry read the note that she left and actually thought that it said the price was double, that it was 2x whatever the price tag was that they were seeing. Well, why in the world would people go and sell out her jewelry case that's 2x the price that she couldn't sell it at? Well, because the people who bought this particular jewelry were vacationers in this area, and they were obviously people with healthy disposable incomes, and they associated, like many of us do, with this old adage that goes something like this: you get what you pay for. And of course, that is true in a lot of senses. And that's why we actually claim it in our own lives and make decisions this way, because that particular saying holds true in a lot of situations. But what ended up happening is these people associated more expensive with more quality, and it made the jewelry that couldn't be sold more desirable just because of the fact that the price was raised. This is a really important thing to consider in your detailing business. Now, before we go any further with that, I want to talk really quickly about what I'm doing in a physical detailing sense here, washing off this door jamb. You're going to see me spend a fair amount of time on this door jamb because it's just so dirty. This is one of those areas on a white vehicle where, just like we're talking about how expensive means quality, I charge a much higher price than most of the detailers in my area. So I want to deliver on something that I call the highest level of perfection that is within the realm realm of possibility. What you find oftentimes with white cars, a lot of times this is really true with SUVs. It's not necessarily true with sedans. I don't really know why I've seen a pattern that way. Maybe that's just correlation and not causation. But the point is, with white vehicles, particularly bigger vehicles, the trunk door jamb is going to be particularly dirty when the vehicle is not seen on a day or on a weekly, monthly, or bi-monthly basis. And maybe you've never seen it before, and you see me attacking this particular door jamb with many different brushes in a few different ways. So here I'm even pulling out my Speedmaster brush as well as my detailing brushes, my Super Clean degreaser, all that sort of stuff. If you guys want to see any of the tools or the products that I use in this video to get this car back to its original condition, check out the YouTube description box below. I always hook up a very, very comprehensive list of all of the tools and all of the products that I use, so you can see those listed out below very clearly. Now, getting back to my business conversation here with you guys of raising the prices, what ends up happening in people's mind, no matter really what industry we're talking about, but particularly in the auto detailing industry here, in many ways, people associate detailers who charge a bit, not an ungodly price that's so far out of range it makes no sense, because there is a threshold that you will hit at some point where the majority of people say this no longer makes sense. However, within that threshold, you will find these perfect price points where people are unbelievably willing to give you their money for you to spend the time to detail their car to what we call the highest level of perfection that's within the realm of possibility. And that is what ended up happening in my business. Ironically enough, when I raised my prices, it's as if my services became more desirable to people. The double whammy of what we're talking about here is, number one, when you raise your prices, of course, you're making more money. You have an instant influx of higher margin in your business, which is, of course, a win all the way around. But the sort of back-end consequences of this is something that I didn't anticipate until it happened. And this, of course, goes with my quote-unquote maintenance client strategy that I always talk about, that this is the most profitable way to build a detailing business with maintenance clients. Higher prices tend to attract the type of customers I talk about building your detailing business foundation on. People with higher amounts of disposable income. And you know what? Not even necessarily people with high amounts of disposable income, but rather people with high amounts of value with their car. They are very concerned about their car, sometimes emotionally attached to it. They look at their car as an investment. This is the type of customer you want to attract. One of the biggest mistakes in the detailing business is this. We're looking at everybody, the entire market of people who own cars, as people who we want to do business with. This is a fundamental mistake that nobody else does in any other industry. I mean, of course, people do it, but my point is we don't talk about it this way in the detailing industry. Just because someone owns a vehicle does not mean they are your target market. And one of the questions we have to ask is, what is the target market of a detailer? If you don't have an answer to the question like that, one of the biggest reasons you get discouraged is because most people you are attracting are not doing business with you. The question is not necessarily, how do I get more customers in the door? The question is, how do I get more of the right customers in the door? How do I go from cold calling to dealing with warm leads? How do I go from converting 10% of calls to converting 50% of calls? This is a question that needs to be asked, and one of the most fundamental ways to shift the target market that's coming in that you're trying to do business with is simply raising your prices. As simple and elementary and ridiculous as that may sound, that is actually a clear psychological play that's completely ethical. You're delivering a service at a higher level than other detailers. You ought to charge for the value you're providing. You ought to charge for the time you're putting in. All of these things are not only things that have had hundreds of experiments run on them, that people actually seriously are ingrained with this idea of you get what you pay for, which again in many cases is true, and in this case would be true, but it does associate this more expensive mindset with something that is more quality. If you've not implemented this strategy in your business at some level, even just for like a 90-day period of experimentation, it's something worth thinking about. Now, on top of that, the second thing, or rather the third thing, in addition to raising your prices, therefore making more money, raising your prices, therefore attracting the right kind of customer, a third thing to seriously think about and have a discussion about is this. Just like there are sort of psychological biases when it comes to things that are more expensive, more quality, sort of brand name sort of thing, there are also these psychological biases that exist with what people consider scarce. When you introduce this element of scarcity, there's a certain level of almost like a fear of loss that people have. This is something I've talked about on the channel before, in that when I began getting this influx of customers into my detailing business where I couldn't really handle the demand, and I got to a point several years ago where I had to literally turn away 70 to 80% of the business that came in simply because I couldn't handle the demand because I was getting so much business. What ended up happening, and this is once again going to sound crazy, but the more I pulled away, the more people wanted me specifically to be their quote unquote detailer. And I quickly became known several years ago in my area as I implemented my sort of maintenance client business structure. I quickly became known as the guy who details on a regular basis. And so what ended up happening is that actually the majority of calls that came in were people who wanted to be on a maintenance schedule. This happened a lot in my early college years. And so I had, upwards of 300 regular clients that I saw at minimum once to twice a year, but at least 100 of those were people that I saw on a monthly, bi-monthly, and what I would say tri-monthly, every 3-month basis, sometimes even every single week. And so I became known as the guy who ended up being the regular detailer, the maintenance detailer. And so I especially couldn't handle the demand that was specifically coming in because there were too many regular clients I had already. It was this kind of time in my business where I was trying to figure out how to hire employees and do some of these things to scale in different ways. It was also a time where I started fiddling around with YouTube and sort of putting out educational content like this for guys who are in the business who might want a different perspective that's not necessarily available. But the point being here is this scarcity thing became really, really obvious the more it happened in my detailing business, in that when you are talking on the phone with someone who is a potential client for your detailing business, and you're speaking in a way using kind of subtle language, not necessarily even meaning to, but just generally speaking in a way where it's clear that you don't need their business. There's not a sort of desperation in your voice. The client is like 100 times more attracted to your business and your services than they would otherwise be. And again, this is something that there's been tons and tons and tons of legitimate experimentation on these sort of subjects of why people are more drawn to what we consider scarce resources and why people pull in when somebody else pulls away and there's a sort of fear of loss. And this is not some sort of manipulation tactic or anything like that. This is more than anything, it's simply an observation that I made from natural consequences coming into my business as it began to scale. Natural consequences I noticed in people when this began to happen. And these three things are really things that are worth thinking about and implementing in your detailing world. So practically speaking, you might be thinking, how do I implement something like looking a little bit more scarce than I am because I want to do business with everybody because I have barely any customers as it is right now. So how could I possibly turn anyone away? I promise you this is at least worth experimenting with. So to give you some practical application, let's just say you're on the phone with someone. How would a conversation like this go? Let's say the customer is talking to me, and let's just pretend I have no details whatsoever this week at all, and it's a Monday morning. And the customer says, listen, I'm interested in getting a full interior detail done. There's a few spots on the carpet I'd like to get up, but outside of that, I really just kind of want everything to be wiped down and done pretty quickly. Is that something you can do? I might respond something like, well, I've got a pretty full week this week, but why don't we talk about a little bit more in detail what you're wanting, just to see if I'm the right guy for the job, because you're talking about getting something done kind of quickly, and I'm a bit more of the guy that people call when they want something deeply cleaned, deeply detailed. I like to say that I don't know how to do a halfway job. And so generally speaking, in our auto detailing business, we offer full details, interior full, exterior full, or both. And we try to make exceptions with specific services when customers want us to. But outside of that, really, we just like to detail everything out fully. That way we meet your expectations. There's a couple things that I said in there that are kind of like trigger phrases or trigger words that I think are really, really healthy and helpful in the detailing business. Number one, I said, listen, I've got a pretty full week. It's not that I'm trying to lie to the customer and act like I have all these details. You might have a full week without the details. If you're married or you have kids or you're in school and you're taking classes, like this is something that I said when I was in school, in college, taking classes. It was like, hey, I have a pretty full week this week. I didn't specify with or without details. And again, I don't think this is unethical or anything like that. I think actually you're just being honest, saying my week's a little busy, so I want to see if I can fit you in. Number one, this sets up the conversation in this sort of, oh, this guy, he's not desperate for my business. He's not clawing at my business at all costs. When you do that, you're just putting yourself on a certain side of the negotiation table that I think is only going to be helpful for you. Secondly, something else that I touched on, other than just, hey, I've got a pretty full week this week, is, hey, I might not be the guy for you. There's this like scarcity thing, like I'm kind of hinting at this sort of scarcity thing without trying to be even conscious of it. I'm actually being honest, saying, hey, you said you just want a quick wipe down, a quick detail. That's not really the way we operate. Let me explain to you very quickly why we don't operate that way. And I might not be the best guy for you. This is something that was incredibly powerful when I started getting more business in the detailing world and I was actually okay with turning away business. I actually would lead the conversations with, hey, I just want to start this conversation and say, I fully recognize that I am not the guy for everybody because of this, this, and this. And so let's talk about your specific situation and let me see if I can help you find exactly who the right person would be for this job. If it is us, great. If it's not, I want to see if we can talk about somebody else in our city who does what you're looking for. And what you're kind of doing is taking like the burden of the job and almost putting it on the customer, saying, let me try to figure out what you're looking for and try to match what you're looking for up with the most reasonable person. And this kind of makes customers come into this mindset of like, well, I called you because I'm looking for you. It's almost like it's like this fear of being wrong even. I've thought about this a lot, like this fear of like, well, no, I called you because I knew I wanted you. I knew you were the guy to detail my car. Why would you even suggest that you're not the guy to detail my car? I've read your reviews. I've had 3 friends recommend you. I know you've got to be the guy. It's this fear of loss. It's this pulling away. And again, it's not unethical. It's not some sort of psychological manipulation. It's just something that is an inevitable consequence when you pull away from people, probably in most businesses, but particularly in a service-based business where people don't want to search around for 5 people. They don't want to do 10 Google searches. They generally want to do business as quickly as they can. You can actually take advantage of that. They want to do business and seal in something in the detailing world as quickly as they can because generally speaking, they don't want to take a bunch of time out of their day to schedule a detail anyways. It's not on the top of their priority list. So as you make yourself more convenient, as you make yourself more desirable, it actually works again to your advantage in this way. So I know I'm talking about a lot of sort of ambiguous things, but the way that these sort of ambiguous things practically play out is just unbelievably interesting. And when you're aware of them in the detailing world, your business will inevitably benefit from this. So I just want to give you guys another example of kind of what I'm talking about here that has just been a very practical way that things have played out in my business. About a year ago, I ended up having to put on my voicemail, hey, I'm no longer taking any new clients. It might have been over a year ago now, maybe a year and a half, maybe closer to 2 years actually. I had to put on my voicemail, I'm no longer taking any new clients because I was maxed out with my maintenance clients. I had too many of those to add any more to them, and I had too many clients in general to take on any new business because between my online part of my business where I'm putting out YouTube videos and making educational content and then the physical detailing side, there was just absolutely no time. unless I started hiring people. And so I got to hire, a bookkeeper and a video editor to cut down on time like that, because I'm really the only one who's able to detail at the level that I want to detail. And I've had, in the past few years, I've gone through certain employees and people working for me and things like that, and different things like that. And I have just decided and netted out that at least at this point in time, it's best for me to simply continue with my maintenance clients and adding to them as I grow and as I want to. That doesn't necessarily take away from my time too much. But what ended up happening when I put my voicemail as this sort of, hey, I'm not taking any more clients. If you're wanting detailing, I'm sorry. You're going to have to look elsewhere. Sorry. What would happen is people who really wanted me to detail their vehicle for whatever reason, why they had to have me was confusing to me and funny. And I realized it wasn't necessarily me. It was the scarcity thing. It's not because I'm the most skilled or the most unbelievable detailer in the world. That's not the case. It's because of the scarcity. It's because of these sort of biases that work in our heads that cause us to make certain decisions without necessarily thinking them through. And what happened was certain people would call, they would hear that voicemail, and they would call and call and call every day until I picked up their phone call. So there was these certain numbers that would call me every single day, and I finally would pick them up because I was curious as to who the heck they were. And what would happen is they were clients who wanted me to detail their cars and wouldn't take no for an answer. And they basically would come to me and say, name your price. What's it going to take for you to get out here? And even more than that, because at this point in my business, I'm kind of known as the maintenance detailer, the guy who takes care of people's cars on a regular basis, people would call me and immediately lead the conversation with, how do I get on your maintenance plan? There was zero sales, zero convincing, zero negotiating, zero selling and advertising that went into feeding the business with maintenance clients. It's just so funny. I think back to those times of just how that, and that still happens to this day. And it's just so funny how that happened with one single voicemail kind of closing people out saying, sorry, I'm not taking any more clients. It's almost like their brain kicked on and it was like, this is the only person who can possibly detail my car in this particular way. That's the only person I'm going to allow to do it. So my point is, there was very practical ways that these sort of things worked out in my business that ended up being unbelievably helpful, unbelievably successful. And what ended up happening is you will inevitably begin to dominate not only your local area, but you begin to move out to what I call non-primary cities, in cities that you're not even necessarily targeting. And there might be a little bit more travel time here and there. So for example, I have one particular customer who's now on a maintenance list, or on my own maintenance list every 3 months. It's a vehicle that he does not drive on a daily basis. It's his non-primary vehicle, and so it virtually never gets dirty. It's in incredible condition every time I get there, and he lives about 25 minutes away from where I live. Well, the reason I'm willing to drive the 25 minutes is because this is a vehicle that I've added to my every 3 month, 4 times a year maintenance plan. It's insanely clean. I would say it's in the top 1% of cleanliness. It doesn't get dirty at all. So really what I do is maintain and protect it. And then thirdly, this particular customer is one of those customers who called and said, listen, I tried to get you to detail my car a year ago, and even a year ago, you didn't have time. So he called me a year later and said, can you please get to it? Can I please get on your maintenance plan? And so because of that, because he had literally been waiting a year to get on the maintenance plan, I said, listen, there's no way I can turn you away. We're going to put you on a maintenance plan. Don't worry about it. So you can just see how these things begin to compound in the detailing business when you approach it from a certain way. I think we've been approaching this business from a way that really doesn't make a lot of sense long term from a sustainability standpoint. What we want to do is create customer magnets where the customers come to us, where we don't have to spend our time going to the customer. We can spend our time focusing on the detailing, focusing on the business, the profitability, but not going out and spending all these hours advertising and doing things like that. So while this video is actually more rare because this is a vehicle that I do not see on a regular basis, this is actually a friend of a friend. And so when those kind of situations happen and they say, my friends come and say, can you please do this car? That ends up being a detail that I always take because, you just do things like that. Now, to get to the more practical side of the detailing part of this video, What's great is that over time, I say this all the time, but over time in the detailing business, it seems that your repertoire of detailing products and tools continues to get simpler and simpler. And so some of the things that I'm using in this detailing video are not only just my simple interior microfiber towels, detailing brushes, my Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner diluted about 8, maybe 7 to 1, and then every now and then I'm pulling out my steamer to do some of the heavy lifting, but the steamer is the only tool in this video that is on the more expensive, more complicated, maybe more advanced detailing side. And this, once again, is a car I do not see on a regular basis, and yet still, it does not require over complexity. It doesn't require overthinking. It doesn't require things that are very difficult to get my hands on, all that sort of thing. It requires just even the simple, bare minimum, fundamental things. And so those are the kind of things that I've actually hooked up, again, in my free guide below in the YouTube description box. If you want to grab that free guide, talking about the top 10 products that you need for under $500 in the detailing world, go grab that guide in the link or in the YouTube description box. There's a link below where you can see that. Now, I just want to give you guys a few practical things of what I'm doing physically detailing in this particular video. One of the things that you've noticed, particularly with the door jambs, is that I always address kind of the major part of the door jamb, meaning the part that actually hinges to the door and to the A and B pillar, and then, of course, the rest of the door, other than the top of the door that lines the window or the trunk that actually swings up. I'm using my Super Clean degreaser with a foaming spray nozzle because I like a bit of foam when I'm dealing with heavy grease and grime that might be on the door jambs, like it was particularly on the trunk. And then I'm going to agitate it and hose it off with a hose. But the difference that you see is when I'm dealing with the top of the door jamb itself, I actually am using my steamer as a sort of rinsing aid. So I'll take my Meguiar's APC here because I don't need a heavy cleaner around the door jamb. And then I'll just take my steamer and let the steamer and the pressure and the heat, of course, with the liquid, push the grease off, and I'll catch it all with my microfiber towel. And then I'll just absorb or like agitate or scrub anything I need to with my microfiber towel. But the great thing about the steamer is that it's going to get in all these tiny spaces in the nuts and bolts and the hinges up here. So I don't have to worry about anything being kind of hard to reach because the steamer is just going to flush all of it out. That's kind of the beautiful thing of using it here. The other thing that I'm doing is using a combination of my Meguiar's APC, my detailing brushes, and the Magic Eraser on any of kind of the door panel material pieces. So, for example, of course, this is the literal door panel, which is that hard vinyl, rubber, plastic materials all kind of combined in one. And, of course, you find those materials on the other parts of the interior as well as any kind of leather pieces that are made up on this type of material as well. And so I like to always keep my Magic Eraser here with me when I'm dealing with a car that's not detailed on a regular basis and potentially was never detailed, because I am dealing with a lot of scuff marks. So the Magic Eraser is going to deal with those in a really, really simple, easy to deal with way. But then my detailing brushes, of course, are going to get in all of those cracks and crevices, and I can steam it to rinse it out. I will say it is fairly necessary, in my opinion, to own a steamer. Air compressor, yes, it's good. I don't prefer the air compressor. I'll explain why. The steamer is not only going to act just like the air compressor would when I'm blowing out all these cracks and crevices in that, it's going to blow out all of the suds that end up sticking in those kind of character lines, those places where the door panels kind of meet. The different parts of the material meet. It's going to spray out all those areas, but it's also going to rinse everything down and make it really, really easy for me to kind of clean up my scrubbing and my suds and my chemical. An air compressor is good, but I like the fact that the steamer actually rinses it because it does cut down on something that I call cleaning marks, where the suds or the cleaner actually drips, the chemical drips, and it ends up kind of leaving a dripping stain on any particular material that you're on, particularly the hard vinyl rubbers and plastics and especially leathers. And the steamer is going to rinse all of that away and further dilute the chemical that you're working with on the panel, and that's really what I like about it. It's going to add more water. You're not going to get cleaning marks. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have some leftover water that just dries on its own and it leaves no mark whatsoever. That's why I think the steamer is absolutely necessary. For those of you wondering, I do use the VX5000 steamer. It's a $900 steamer, so I will be hooking up a much less expensive but very, very attractive steamer for detailers in the YouTube description box below as well. You see I'm using the Magic Eraser here, and I'm being very careful with it. I'm not just going scrubbing like a madman, a psychopath, okay? I'm actually taking it one line at a time, and you can see if I do scrub, I'm very careful at where I do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to move down the door panel using my steamer, using my brushes, using my microfiber towels, all of that stuff. One really, really important tip that you need to do, because it's just going to make your life so much easier in a situation like this, where what I call hitting the reset button on a vehicle, meaning you're just going to detail it out completely. You're using a lot of chemical. You're going to get a lot of overspray in different areas. You want to make sure before you ever start that all of the windows are rolled down. If you roll all of the windows down, you don't have to worry at any point about getting any chemical overspray on the interior glass, which if it sits for too long can be a very serious problem and just a bear of difficulty that you don't want to have to deal with when you're coming back for your final detailing protection, final detailing wipe down. Just roll the windows down. I promise you, life is better this way. You'll be happier this way. Okay, life is just better this way. And then as you can see, I always keep a bucket of clean water with me whenever I'm doing the interior of any detail, just because clean water is always really good to have. Of course, I've got my hose hooked up, but I don't always want to be spraying stuff. And so I always fill up a clean bucket of water with any interior detail I ever do. Yes, clean water is good, not just for the exterior, but also for the interior, because it's easy to just dip your brushes in. It's easy to dip your magic eraser in. It's easy to just get a quick little shake off of chemical or whatever it is. So I always keep a clean bucket of water solution with me. And outside of that, guys, once again, if you want to check out any of the tools or the products that I used in this particular video, from the steamer to the Meguiar's APC to the towels to everything else you can think of, go below in the YouTube description box, because I am hooking up links very organized to all of those things. So if you want to get your hands on the things that I use for basically all interiors, go below and check out those links. If you like this type of information, like auto detailing, business heavy content, business information, then go and destroy the like button, because it does help this video get out on YouTube and seen by more auto detailers who may or may not need this information. But at least if you like this video, they'll have the option to get this information. So if you are getting some value here and you appreciate this information, then go below, smash the like button so that other detailers can see it as well. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to see the top 10 tools and products that I suggest for starting your auto detailing business for under $500, get the free guide below in the YouTube description box. It'll be the first link down there, and you can join the Wilson Auto Detailing email list as well and get updates on all sorts of auto detailing information and skyrocket your business like I keep talking about. Lastly, guys, if you're new here and you love seeing videos like this and getting information like this, hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so that you get notified when I publish future videos, because I publish them all the time. In fact, I publish every other day. So guys, number one, thank you so much for being involved in the Wilson Auto Detailing community. I'm incredibly grateful. And number two, take this information, implement it in your business. I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video.